Well, thank you very much, John, and my dear colleagues. These guys are my true friends, not only from Nuremberg, from all the years since, and I really love them. They are dedicated men. They really believe in the rule of law, and I'm honored to be gathered here, to be here in their company. Justice Jackson's Executive Trial Counsel, Colonel Robert G. Story, directed me to prepare the case against the Gestapo and SD and the chief of the Reich Main Security Office, Ernst Kaltenbrunner. While working on the Kaltenbrunner case, I learned that British intelligence had taken prisoner a man by the name of Otto Ohlendorf and had him under interrogation in London. Ohlendorf was the head of Amt 3 of the RSHA, which dealt with matters of intelligence within Germany. I had no idea that he might be able to shed light on war crimes, but I thought it would be useful to bring him to Nuremberg where I could learn more from him about the organization of which Kaltenbrunner, my defendant, was the chief. The British sent him to Nuremberg, and I began the interrogation by asking him what his activities had been during the war. He said that he had served as chief of Amt 3 of the RSHA, except for the year 1941. Naturally, I asked what he had done during that year, when he replied that in 1941, he had been in command of Einsatzgruppe D and was inspired to ask, "Well, Ohlendorf, how many men, women, and children did your group kill during that year?" And he answered, 90,000. That broke the case on the extermination program of the Einsatzgruppen in the Eastern Territories. And we were able to establish, through the testimony of Ohlendorf and others, that approximately 2 million persons, namely Jews, had been murdered by these units of the RSHA. It was the initial proof of the Holocaust, genocide by Germany. By the time we had rested our case, we had not found the greatest killer of the regime, Rudolf Hirsch, the commandant of Auschwitz concentration camp. It was therefore a dramatic moment when I was informed that Hirsch had been captured by the British near Flensburg. I asked that he be sent to Nuremberg, where I interrogated him over a period of 3 days, reducing his testimony to an affidavit. Hirsch told me and later testified to the tribunal in open court that approximately 2.5 million persons had been murdered at Auschwitz. Hitler and his Confederates who led Germany to disaster in the 20th century are all dead. They were the principal actors in a fearsome drama, but as Prospero foretold, they were all spirits and melted into air, into thin air. The tyrant Hitler and his associates in crime will someday be forgotten. Forgotten, too, may be their crimes. It is enough that tomorrow's world remembers what today's world has learned through the bitter experience of this fallen regime, that tyranny leads to inhumanity, and inhumanity to death. The spirit of Hitlerism was one of the greatest factors for evil in all of history. For Hitler had the advantage over tyrants of earlier times, of modern technology, through which his propaganda could be constantly pounded into the German people, and his war machine could be made to strike his enemies with shattering force. The consequence of that spirit was the commission of genocide and other crimes against humanity, which stagger comprehension. After hearing the confession of Rudolf Hirsch to the Nuremberg tribunal, the defendant Hans Frank, the Governor General of occupied Poland, declared that was the low point of the entire trial. To hear a man say out of his own mouth that he exterminated 2.5 million people in cold blood, that is something people will talk about for 1,000 years. We must have an effective system of international justice crowning our national systems of law. Our scientists have not feared to make thermonuclear weapons which could destroy civilization. Certainly, we should not fear to establish the principles of law which will permit civilization to survive. We must find the way to make law supreme in international relations, or we shall live forever under a pall of fear. Nuremberg stands firmly against the resignation of man to the inhumanity of man. Because of Nuremberg and the efforts which it represents of men's attempt to elevate justice and law over inhumanity and war, there is a hope for a better tomorrow. Thank you.